看着蓝色天空，清澈的迎着风，这海风的轻柔，哦哇哦，向你拥抱。
Shalom and good day, this is Healing29, back again for another anime review. This time I'm returning back to a donghua, which is a Chinese anime series. And with this particular donghua, it's called The Daily Life of the Immortal King, and it happens to be Season 3. I just recently finished the last episode, so I'll be going through each of the episode titles. The only thing is, watching it through Crunchyroll, they don't give a synopsis, so I'm going to have to try give a good synopsis of each episode the best I can. So I'll get started. Starting with episode 1, it's called Top Girl versus Top Girl, to which we have a bit of a competition of sorts, which focuses between Sunrong and also the other new top girl in the series, who is called Kyuyima. Forgive me if I happen to butcher that. But in this particular episode, we sort of like have the characters have a bit of a face-off of sorts, and only for Sunrong to end up winning, because they also try to win over the heart of Wang Ling. So it's pretty much those who can win over Wang Ling wins, and of course the person who does happen to win is of course Sunrong herself. The next episode is Froggy 2's birthday, which this character absolutely relates straight back to Season 1, going through Season 2, and of course moving into Season 3. And this is an episode to which we get to learn and understand about Froggy's personal birthday within the story, and also how Wang Ling also helps him celebrate it, along with also some of the class members in his Faction 60. Now, in episode 3, one thing I liked about episode 3 and 4 is it sort of paid a bit of a homage to the series of Pokemon as to how it was actually done in this particular story. And in it we see Kyuyima, who sort of like chooses or picks a monster or a demon when Earth was invaded by the demons and the Demon King. And because of the events, there ends up a bit of a fight happening. And in this, we end up meeting a unicorn, and the unicorn is named Sylvie. And in that, there's a bit of a fight that happens between Sylvie and Kyuyima's monster. Of course, they play like in Pokemon as well, and they give the character evolutions as they grow stronger, and of course they do actually beat. Now in episode 4, we do have something a little bit different take place. Yes, Kyuyima returns as to try to want to get revenge against Sylvie, but in the process, after sort of like she's beaten once again with the unicorn, the unicorn is actually returned to its own universe. Now, jumping into episode 5, it is called You Are My Sword, and this was actually a really nice episode. I enjoyed this episode because it focused a little bit more on Wang Ling, and we got to see his character when he was a little bit younger in the story. And with him in this story, we see that when he was sort of like going out with his father, looking for a particular sword, and of course his old man had his eyes on a big sword that he thought his son could use, only to learn that his son actually had his eye on like a type of wooden sword, and that wooden sword also had a sheath, but by the time that they returned, the person or the vendor who was selling it played a bit of a dirty trick on the person who was buying it and kept the sheaf, which leads to sort of like some present day events, to which we see the sheaf in a way sort of like going around as a bit of a vigilante type sort. And whilst this is occurring, it ends up sort of like going up against some of the heroes in that world and defeating those heroes, just as the sheaf itself. And this is where Wang Ling realizes that there might be something of importance here. And he also gets a little bit of help from his classmates, to which they do eventually reconciling the sword with his sheaf. And it's really nice. And we learn that the sheaf is actually the sword's sister. So by the time we move on to episode 6, it's called It's My Round. Now, what this sort of focuses on is a little bit of, I guess, black market auctioneering. And in the process, we get to see like some of the events that are taking place. But in this black market auctioneering, we also have houses of nobility that are bidding money for certain objects. And with this, they end up retrieving some things of importance. By the time we move on into episode 7, we have something funny happening with the character of Chen Chao, and the episode 7 is called Welcome to the Exorcist Team. Now, the way this Exorcist team came across, it felt a little bit like a mix of Tokyo Revengers meets Exorcism. And we learn that this group of exorcists aren't who or they are hyped up to be, but that sort of like takes a little bit of place, because we get to see some of the forefront type of stuff that they do in public. And with this, Guan Hao wants to join the Exorcist team, and it's not long whilst he's also there with Chen Chao that he notices some black market dealings. Of course, they both get kicked out because they learn the truth. And because of that, Wang Lin comes in and sort of like helps play the hero. By the time we move on to episode 7, this actually focuses on one of the key heroes in the story. And it's called A False Hero. And this sort of focuses on sort of like how this person has become a hero in the sight of the people in this particular story. But the only reason that he isn't actually a hero is because of Wang Ling's efforts and not his own efforts. And even though this occurs, Wang Ling still has respect for him, right? Because he knows he wants to be a hero. And I guess in a way it's like an imposter syndrome that he's sort of going through, because he doesn't feel like a real hero. Now, as we start to move into episode 9, 10, 11, and 12, we have the Oath on High Saints Day, to which a number of people are invited to a High Saints Day that's happening in Sunlan. So this, we sort of like return to the Sunrong the Sunrong residence, and during this occasion we have an event which we actually get to meet her grandfather, and her grandfather reminds you a lot of sort of like a older version of the Monkey King. It's the only other way to put it. But very well done, I must admit, very well done. Then we have the Sun's family Kuju is stolen, which we learn that there's a certain person who has been picked to steal the Sun family's Kuju, to which the Kuju we learn is basically the Monkey King's staff. Episode 11 is like a daring journey to Sunland, to which we see the top girl who actually played a part in the, I guess, the stealing of the Kuju. But in essence, we start to learn towards the end of the episode who was the person who actually authorized or who gave her this command, being Froggy. By the time we move into episode 12, we sort of get a bit of a recap of everything that has taken place over the past 11 episodes. And we also learn how Froggy is also responsible for what happened with the Exorcist team. So we learned that he played a part in the creation of the Exorcist team. To which he ends up setting up a certain amount of events to try to get Wang Ling to solve, and due to him going up against Wang Ling, he does end up losing against him, but upon his loss, he also sets some conditions to which Wang Ling is able to fulfill those conditions for him. First is the return of the demons that sort of like came to the land or came to Earth during sort of like last season's events, because in a way they sort of like became refugees of sorts, and in that essence, Wang Ling created a new world for them for them to go and basically to free the Earth up. And his second condition was to keep Froggy as his pet dog. And he does decide to fulfill those conditions. I must admit, this was a really nice season. If anything, I think that this was probably one of the funnest seasons that I have watched of daily life of the Immortal King, where there was a lot of, I guess, really good storytelling in the past two seasons. This one really seemed to focus a lot on the fun of this season. And yes, it gave us fun. So moving into my afterthoughts in relation to this season, I really enjoyed the main characters. I really enjoyed the supporting characters. It was really nice to meet some new characters as well in the story, especially some characters that we haven't met before, especially in relation to the Sun Rong family, to which we got to meet her grandfather, and also some of her other relatives as well. And we got to see a little bit more as to how much power Wang Ling actually has in this world, but also how smart he can be when it comes to certain events. In relation to sort of like the last episode, Froggy 2 sets up some tests for him, and he has a go at his test or exam score, saying that he got a 60, and he thought, okay, he was being dumb. He was, I guess, playing dumb, but he's actually smart. And it was really nice as to how they executed that in the story. And all Wang Ling wants is just to live a normal everyday life without the kerfuffle. Jumping into the next thing, and the next thing being that of the rating. So rating, I think I'll start off the racing in regards to the main characters for this season. Of course, our main characters are still the four main from the beginning of, say, the first and second season, being Wang Ling, Sun Rong, Gua Hao, and Chen Chao. I really liked what they did here, and also how they interacted with, say, the supporting characters, being Kuyuma, and how they sort of like played a part in working together into unfolding and also, I guess, messing up the opponents' or the adversaries' plans. For that, I give an 8.5 out of 10. Moving into the next, and that is the area of the supporting characters. I think with some of the supporting characters, of course, it would be Kuyuma. Of course, the little groups, including, say, the teachers of sorts, plus also meeting new family members that have made an appearance in the story, to even meeting new groups in the story, such as the Exorcist team. For that, I give an 8 out of 10. Next, I will move into the area of the soundtrack. I must admit, I am really enjoying the soundtrack to this series. There was some things that happened throughout this series to which they actually brought back some of the soundtrack from the previous series, or the previous season, I mean. With that, I give an 8.5 out of 10. Next is the area of the animation. If it's one thing that I really enjoy with the animation is how consistent it is, and with that, I give a straight 8.5 out of 10. Moving into the area of the story, considering how fun this season was, I think for fun alone, I think I've given the previous two seasons an 8 to an 8.5. I think I might keep it an 8.5, and I know that by the time that I'm also doing this video, season 4 is already up to 8 episodes, so probably by the time that this video goes up, season 4 will probably be completed, and I should be probably making a start on a review of season 4. I'd really like to give it a 9, but I think I'll stick to an 8.5 out of 10. And I'll see how things go in next season, because that one might actually be the 9 out of 10. Well, until then, let's keep it colourful and have yourself an awesome day.
看着蓝色天空，清澈的迎着风，这海风的轻柔，向你拥抱。也想寻觅一个角落，想也能偶尔偷个懒。剩下的列车缓缓靠站，抛下烦恼腾空。就穿人字拖去兜风，看谁先摸到鼹鼠丛，小闹声飘到很远，气氛轻松。脚印交错围成了圈，浪花捣乱了足迹，跑远。说再来一遍。无止境的梦，将世界搅动，闯入缤纷吧，一起疯！就用挥舞摇摆的双手，连接了每颗星球的舞动。